Have you ever felt a tightness in your chest, a restless mind, or an invisible weight pressing down on your spirit? We call it anxiety. But what if I told you, anxiety isn't your enemy, it's your soul's alarm system. It's not weakness, not madness, not a flaw. It's a whisper from deep within you saying, this life, this path isn't truly yours. Anxiety often appears not when we are lost, when we are living someone else's version of our life. When we chase titles, expectations, and approval instead of truth, our soul resists. That resistance feels like anxiety. Have you ever wondered why anxiety often strikes hardest when everything looks fine on the outside? You have the job, the paycheck, the friends, the social media highlights, yet something deep inside trembles. That's because anxiety is not always born from chaos. It's often born from misalignment. Imagine your life as a compass. Your soul is the true north. But as we grow, we get pulled by magnetic forces, family expectations, cultural pressure, fear of failure, fear of judgment. Slowly, without realizing, our compass needle begins to drift away from who we truly are. We keep walking, thinking we are making progress, but every step takes us farther from our essence. Quiet separation between who we are and who we pretend to be is where anxiety begins to breathe. It's not a disease of the mind, it's a cry from the heart saying, "Oh, I'm lost. Please bring me back." When your actions, habits, and choices no longer reflect your values or dreams, your soul protests. It doesn't protest with words. It protests with feelings. The racing heart, the sleepless nights, the uneasy silence in your mind. All of that is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's the inner you trying to shake you awake. Think about it, a bird locked in a cage will beat its wings against the bars, not because it is broken, but because it was meant to fly. In the same way, anxiety is not you breaking down, it is you breaking free from what was never yours. Most people try to silence anxiety with distractions, scrolling, overworking, substances, noise. But numbing it only makes it louder later. Running through the park, because you can silence the mind, but you cannot silence the soul. The soul will always speak, and anxiety is its language when it's being ignored. So instead of asking, "How do I stop my anxiety?" start asking, "What part of my life is not truly me?" Where are you saying yes when your soul is screaming no? Where are you staying silent when your truth wants to roar? Those are the real sources of anxiety. Misalignment is not failure, it is feedback. And if you listen, if you have the courage to pause and realign your life with your inner truth, the anxiety that once felt like a curse becomes your greatest compass. It stops being the weight that drags you down and becomes the wind that points you home. One of the heaviest burdens we carry is the weight of pretending. From the moment we are children, we are taught subtle lessons. Be good, be perfect, be strong, don't make mistakes, don't fear, don't disappoint anyone. And so, without realizing it, we begin to craft masks, carefully painted smiles, carefully rehearsed answers, carefully curated versions of ourselves to present to the world. But here's the truth no one tells us. Pretending is exhausting. It drains the spirit in ways we cannot see but deeply feel. Each day that we show up as someone we are not, a small part of our soul quietly withers. We go to jobs that don't inspire us but tell ourselves they're good enough. We laugh in conversations that don't move us just to avoid being the odd one out. We nod and agree to ideas that go against our values just to belong. And while the world may applaud our performance, our soul silently mourns. Mourning often shows up as anxiety, not because something is wrong with us, but because something is false around us. Tending creates an inner war. On the outside, you're polished and perfect. On the inside, you're fractured and fragile. Your soul is screaming for authenticity while your mind is trying to maintain the illusion. This constant tug of war burns enormous emotional energy. It's like holding your breath all day just to seem composed. Eventually you suffocate. And that suffocation is what we call anxiety. People often say, just be yourself. But they rarely acknowledge how terrifying that can be when you've spent years hiding your real self. It feels risky, vulnerable. What if people don't like the real me? What if I'm rejected? And yet, what we don't realize is that every time we pretend to be someone else, we are already rejecting ourselves. Anxiety thrives in that rejection, grows in the shadows where our truth is buried. The more we deny our authentic voice, the louder anxiety becomes, because it is the echo of everything unspoken, unlived, and unseen. And the pressure of pretending doesn't only hurt the mind, it isolates the heart. Because even when people love you, you secretly fear they love the mask and not the real you. That loneliness, being surrounded yet unseen, feeds anxiety like nothing else. Here's the miracle: when you begin peeling off the masks, piece by piece, something shifts. The anxiety begins to loosen its grip, because your soul no longer has to fight to be heard. You start to breathe again. Not the shallow breath of someone surviving, the deep breath of someone finally existing as they are. The world tells us that to be accepted we must perform. Your soul is not here to perform, it's here to be. And every act of pretending may win you applause. Every act of authenticity will win you peace. So, when anxiety whispers in your quiet moments, don't rush to silence it. Ask yourself gently, what part of me am I hiding? Who am I pretending to be today? Because the moment you stop performing for the world and start showing up for your soul, pressure dissolves. And with it, so does the anxiety that once held you hostage. Every soul is born carrying seeds of desire, unique dreams, passions, callings, and curiosities that make us who we are. They are not random, they are sacred instructions coded into our spirit to guide us toward a meaningful life. But what happens when we bury them, when we lock them away because they seem too risky, too big, too inconvenient, or too unacceptable to others? They don't disappear. They transform. Suppressed desires never die quietly. They ferment, they build pressure, and eventually they turn inward, becoming restlessness, self-doubt, irritability, and that invisible heaviness we call anxiety. Think of a river. When it flows freely, it nourishes everything in its path. But when you dam it, the water doesn't vanish. It builds behind the barrier, growing turbulent, desperate, chaotic. That's what happens inside us when we dam our true desires. Energy meant to create a life of purpose instead swirls into anxiety because it has nowhere else to go. Many of us were taught early on to be realistic, to be practical, to put aside our passions for safer paths. Maybe you loved art but chose accounting. Maybe you dreamed of travel but stayed in one place out of fear. Maybe you craved solitude but forced yourself to be social because it seemed expected. Every time you said, "This dream is not allowed," you cut off a piece of your own spirit, and your soul remembers. That forgotten energy does not go away, it becomes internal chaos. You start to feel restless for no reason, unhappy in moments that should make you happy. You wake up with dread instead of excitement. You live days that look full but feel hollow. That is not failure. It is the voice of your unlived life screaming to be acknowledged. Suppressed desires also distort your relationship with yourself. Deep down, you know you are capable of more. When you constantly deny your true longings, you start believing the lie that you are not enough. This creates self-doubt, shame, and fear, perfect soil for anxiety to grow. And the more anxious you feel, the more you silence your desires, trapping yourself in an endless loop. But here's the truth that changes everything. Your desires are not distractions. They are directions. They are the compass points of your soul. Ignoring them will always create chaos. because your spirit will never stop pushing toward what it was born to do. So how do we begin to heal this chaos? By turning toward what we've buried, by asking, what did I once love before I was told it wasn't practical? What lights me up even if it scares me? What do I crave in the quiet moments when no one is watching? Start small if you must. Write, paint, dance, explore, learn, whatever whispers to your heart. Even the smallest act of honoring your hidden desires can begin to untangle years of inner tension. The moment you allow your passions to breathe, your anxiety begins to exhale, because anxiety thrives where desire is denied, but peace thrives where desire is expressed. When you give yourself permission to want what you want, the war inside you ends, the chaos quiets, and the energy that once twisted into fear becomes fuel for creation, growth, and joy. Pressed desire is not a flaw, it's a map. Follow it, and you don't just silence anxiety, you awaken your life. In today's world, business has become the ultimate badge of honor. We wear our exhaustion like an achievement, and our packed schedules like proof of our worth. Our calendars are full, we feel important. If our days are overflowing, we feel productive. But behind this frantic motion, quiet tragedy unfolds. Business becomes the perfect disguise for emptiness. We tell ourselves we are just busy when we are actually running from ourselves. Because stillness is dangerous, it creates space. And in that space, our soul begins to speak. It whispers questions we're terrified to hear. Are you happy here? Is this who you are? Are you living or just performing life? So we drown those whispers in noise. We pile on tasks, commitments, and distractions. We say yes when we want to say no. We stay up late scrolling, wake up early rushing, move through life like machines because machines don't have to feel. But we are not machines. We are human beings. And every ignored feeling becomes a knot inside us. That knot is anxiety. Many people wonder why their anxiety spikes at night when everything finally goes quiet. It's because silence is when the mask slips. When the meetings end, the phone stops buzzing, and the roles we play dissolve, we are left alone with the truth we've been avoiding. And that truth doesn't whisper, it roars. Business is seductive because it gives the illusion of control. It lets us pretend we are fine while secretly falling apart. But anxiety cannot be outrun. It waits patiently in the silence. The more we avoid it with business, more powerful it becomes. Because ignoring your soul is not peace, it is postponing the storm. We live in a culture that applauds the grind but forgets the cost. We chase productivity, status, and endless achievement, thinking they will bring happiness. But no external success can heal internal disconnection. You can achieve everything the world admires and still lie awake at night feeling hollow. That hollowness is not failure. It is feedback. It's your soul begging for presence, not performance. Business hides the truth, but it also hides you. The real you, the one who loves quietly, dreams boldly, and longs for meaning, gets buried under endless to-do lists. You become so focused on keeping up that you forget who you are. And when you lose sight of who you are, anxiety rushes in to fill the space where your identity used to live. But there is another way: courage to slow down, to step off the spinning wheel, even for a moment, and sit in stillness. To breathe, ask yourself questions you've avoided, to let the silence become your teacher instead of your enemy. At first, this feels uncomfortable. The noise of the world has been your armor, and silence makes you feel exposed. But within that discomfort lies your deepest truth. Because only in stillness can you see what truly matters and what was never yours to carry. When you strip away the business, you begin to notice what your heart has been whispering all along. You notice what nourishes you and what drains you. You see which relationships feed your soul and which only feed your ego. You remember the person you were before the world told you who to be. And something miraculous happens as you reconnect to your truth. The anxiety that once felt like a monster begins to soften because it no longer has to shout to be heard. Busyness may numb your pain, but stillness heals it. So when your life feels like a constant race, pause, step out of the noise, sit in silence and ask yourself, what truth am I running from? That single act of courage can dissolve years of hidden anxiety, because the moment you stop running from your soul is the moment you start coming home to it. We spend so much of our lives chasing what we think will bring peace, success, approval, recognition, security. Yet so many people reach those milestones and still lie awake at night, trembling with anxiety. Why? Peace can never be found in pretending. Peace lives only in one place: authenticity. Authenticity is not about being perfect, loud, or rebellious. It is about being real. It is about daring to remove the masks, peel off the layers of expectation, and stand in the raw truth of who you are, even if that truth is messy, vulnerable, or misunderstood. And this is why it heals anxiety. Anxiety is born from self-abandonment, and authenticity is the act of coming home to yourself. When you live inauthentically, when you choose paths just to please others, when you silence your voice to keep peace, when you betray your values to gain approval, you create an invisible fracture inside you. One part of you moves forward in the world, performing, achieving, pleasing, while another part lingers behind, broken and unseen. That gap between who you are and who you pretend to be becomes the breeding ground of anxiety. But the moment you begin to live authentically, something profound happens. That inner gap begins to close. Your thoughts, words, and actions finally align. You no longer waste energy pretending, and that energy becomes available to nourish your spirit. Instead of waking up with dread, you wake up with direction. Instead of feeling hollow, you begin to feel whole. Authenticity brings peace because it ends the war within. It is no longer a battle between your truth and your performance. There is only you, unfiltered, unapologetic, and free. Of course, authenticity is not easy. The world doesn't always celebrate the real you. Sometimes it criticizes, questions, or rejects what it doesn't understand. That's why so many people hide. They fear that being real will cost them love, respect, or belonging. The deeper truth is this: if you must become someone else to be accepted, then you are not truly accepted. You are only tolerated. And that false acceptance will always fuel anxiety, because you know, deep down, that people are loving the mask, not the soul behind it. When you dare to be authentic, yes, some people will drift away. But the ones who remain will love you for who you truly are, not for who you pretend to be. And that kind of love is healing. That kind of love dissolves anxiety because you no longer have to earn it. You simply exist in it. Authenticity also liberates your purpose. When you are real, you stop chasing paths that aren't meant for you and start walking the one your soul was born to follow. You stop asking, "What will they think of me?" and start asking, "What lights me up? What makes me come alive?" That shift is where peace begins. Living authentically doesn't mean you never feel fear. It means you feel fear and choose truth anyway. It means showing your scars instead of hiding them, speaking your truth even when your voice shakes, choosing what nourishes you even when it disappoints others. Courage builds self-respect, and self-respect is the soil where anxiety cannot survive. So if anxiety has been your shadow, ask yourself gently, where am I betraying my truth just to belong? Where am I wearing masks to be loved? Because the moment you start honoring your real self, you stop needing to be anyone else. And in that sacred moment, the chains of anxiety fall away, not because life becomes perfect, but because you are finally living your life, not a performance of it. Authenticity is not just the antidote to anxiety. It is the doorway to freedom. In a world that constantly tells us to go faster, do more, and be more, greatest act of courage is to turn inward, to stop chasing everything outside and begin reconnecting with the one person we have abandoned the most, ourselves. We often talk about anxiety as if it is an enemy invading us. But in truth, anxiety often arises because we have drifted so far from our inner core that we no longer feel safe within our own skin. We live surrounded by noise but cut off from our own voice. We know everyone else's expectations but not our own needs. We scroll endlessly through other people's lives but rarely sit quietly with our own heart. Disconnection is not just emotional, it is spiritual. And when your spirit is unheard, it rebels. It sends waves of anxiety not to punish you, but to call you back. Anxiety is often your soul whispering, "Please come home. Listen to me. Remember me?" Self-connection is how you answer that call. It begins with silence. Not the empty silence that feels lonely, the sacred silence that allows you to hear yourself again. In that silence, you begin to notice your emotions instead of running from them. You notice the places that ache, the dreams you've buried, the needs you've ignored. You realize anxiety is not a monster to fight but a messenger to understand. Through self-connection, you start to build a relationship with your inner world the way you would with someone you love, with patience, curiosity, and tenderness. You stop demanding perfection from yourself and start offering compassion. You stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "What do I need right now to feel safe, whole, and alive?" This is powerful because when you feel connected to yourself, you stop fearing your emotions. Anxiety loses its power when it is met with understanding instead of resistance. Imagine holding the hand of a frightened child. That child calms, not because the fear disappears, but because they no longer feel alone. Self-connection does the same for your anxious self. It says, "You are safe with me. I won't abandon you." There are many ways to reconnect. Journaling lets your inner voice spill onto the page without judgment. Meditation teaches you to sit with your thoughts without drowning in them. Walking in nature reminds you that you are part of something vast and beautiful. Even something as simple as breathing slowly and deeply is a way of coming back to yourself in the present moment. Something profound happens as you deepen this relationship with yourself. The anxiety that once roared like a storm becomes a quiet ripple, because it no longer has to scream to be heard. Self-connection also builds self-trust, and self-trust is the foundation of inner peace. When you trust yourself, you no longer fear uncertainty, rejection, or failure the way you once did. You know you can handle life because you are rooted in your own being. Anxiety thrives on doubt, but it cannot survive where trust grows. The truth is, no amount of external success can heal internal disconnection. You can change jobs, cities, relationships, and still carry anxiety with you. Because peace is not found in new places, it is found in reuniting with yourself. So if your soul feels restless, anxiety has wrapped around your days like a shadow, pause. Close your eyes. Place your hand on your heart and whisper, "I'm here, run the park. I'm listening. I will not abandon you again." Because healing doesn't come from running away from yourself. Healing begins the moment you come home to yourself. At the heart of every anxious soul lies a simple, aching truth. You are living a life that doesn't belong to you. Maybe not all of it. Maybe just pieces. But those pieces matter, weigh on you like invisible chains. And until you choose the life that is truly yours, anxiety will keep whispering, pulling, tightening around your heart like a warning bell saying, "This is not where you are meant to be." Freedom does not come from fixing your anxiety. It comes from choosing your real life, even if that choice terrifies you. Most of us don't choose our lives. We inherit them. We absorb beliefs from our parents, roles from our culture, dreams from society. We spend years climbing ladders that lean against the wrong walls. When we finally reach the top, we look around and wonder why the view feels hollow. That hollowness is the echo of an unlived life. Anxiety is the tension between who you are expected to be and who you are meant to be. The longer you ignore your truth, the louder that tension becomes. It shows up as panic, restlessness, dread, the feeling that something is off, even when everything looks right. But here's the miracle. The key to quieting that storm is not outside you, it's within. It's the courage to look at your life with unflinching honesty and ask, is this truly mine? That question can shatter you. It can unravel everything you've built, but it can also set you free. Because when you choose your real life, the one aligned with your values, your passions, your voice, your soul, you stop fighting yourself. And when you stop fighting yourself, anxiety has nowhere left to hide. Running through the park, choosing your real life might mean walking away from things that once defined you, jobs that pay well but starve your spirit, relationships that look perfect but feel empty, routines that keep you safe but make you small. It might mean disappointing others, might mean standing alone for a while. But what you gain is worth more than everything you lose. You gain the lightness of living in truth. You gain mornings that feel like beginnings instead of battles. You gain nights where your mind is quiet because it no longer has to scream, running through the park. You gain the peace of knowing that you are no longer pretending, no longer performing, no longer betraying yourself just to belong. And as you choose your real life, something astonishing happens. The anxiety that once chained you becomes your ally, becomes the compass that guided you home. What once felt like a curse becomes the proof that your soul never gave up on you. It kept nudging, pushing, screaming until you finally listened. Freedom is not about controlling the world around you. Freedom is about aligning with the world within you. When you choose your real life, you are no longer trapped by fear, comparison, or expectation. You are free, not because life is perfect, but because you are finally living it as you. So if your soul is tired, if your anxiety feels endless, pause and ask, what life is mine to live? What would I choose if I were not afraid? And then, choose it, even if your voice shakes, even if the world misunderstands. Because that first brave step into your real life is the first step into peace. Choosing your real life doesn't just silence anxiety, it sets you free. As we come to the close of this deep reflection, remember this: anxiety is not your enemy, it is your soul's whisper calling you back home to yourself. It is a messenger, not a mistake. Every wave of unease, every sleepless night, every racing thought is not proof that you are broken. It is proof that something within you longs for truth, freedom, and alignment. Instead of silencing your anxiety with distractions or burying it beneath masks of perfection, dare to listen. Sit with it. Ask it what part of your life feels false and which parts crave authenticity. Because beneath all that fear is a longing for wholeness, a yearning to return to the life you were truly meant to live. Let your anxiety become your compass, not your cage. Let it guide you to environments, relationships, and choices that nourish your soul rather than drain it. And when you do, you'll notice something miraculous. The anxiety fades, not because you forced it to go away, but because it is no longer needed. You will wake up lighter. You will breathe deeper. You will feel at peace, not because life is perfect, but because you are finally living in alignment with who you really are. So walk forward bravely and choose the path of truth over the illusion of comfort. Choose authenticity over acceptance. And, most of all, choose yourself.